go is just such a massive part of transformation, well-being, inner work, learning how to really work with the law of attraction and manifestation, and ultimately how to truly heal some of our deepest, darkest, densest rooted pain from within self. And of course, when we do this work from within self, we assist in the collective awakening. So people say, like, oh, just let it go. Yeah, just let it go. But why do we have these things that we need to let go of in the first place? And that's what I call density in the Fearless Life Guide, is that we're all, you could say, carriers of density. That as humanity moves from one dimension into the next, or from one vibrational frequency into the next, what are we actually doing? Well, we're letting go of perspectives. We're letting go of embedded belief systems which hold our frequency at a certain level. So that has to do with the cellular activity of our cells on a molecular level, and the DNA. So we're shifting, enlightening the DNA so that we come more alive and we're more powerful manifestors. Part of the clincher here, of course, is awakening into our heart center and perceiving from a place of oneness and love. That's how we're going to make this shift. Otherwise, we just stay hanging out on that frequency. Yay! How goes Rochelle? Love to see you. I randomly still have your email in my notes here. Okay, so I actually wrote notes for this one. Yay. How to truly let go. And then when I'm saying that, okay, we might be able to consciously let go of stuff, but how do we not re-embed more density that we're going to have to let go of? So the first two steps have to do with a continual daily practice. Actually, all three of them are daily practices to be aware of, to not keep rooting into stuff or getting into habits where we're attaching our existence or our perception onto something that eventually we're going to have to let go of, because we're attaching our sense of wellness, our sense of happiness, our sense of power onto something outside of us. So anytime we hook into that, at some point we're going to have to let it go. So when it comes to our interpersonal relationships with other human beings, the biggest part or thing is non-comparing. So it's easier to detach and it's easier to be self-empowered when we're not comparing ourselves to other people. And it sounds really effing simple, and yet we compare. We see people doing really well, we feel shit about ourselves because we're not doing that. Or or vice versa. We secretly see people doing shit and we're like, we're feeling better. So there we see the dualistic aspect of, I know, right? I know. That's the power of this stuff. We don't realize how embedded our default system is, or our default pattern. We do not realize how entrenched we are to compare, to compete with one another, to judge and assess ourselves. Whoop! There we go. Leading into step number 2 for how to truly let go is to stop judging. And I'm going to say, stop judging yourself. Because the truth of it is that whether we're judging ourselves or we're judging another person, it's the same. That's the trippiest thing about our head. We negatively judge the external, thinking it protects us, but actually it just keeps us bound. And it's those bound patterns that bring us back to negative situations and it's way more subtle than the physical. That's, for me, the point of working with this stuff, is that I'm not interested in micromanaging my life and controlling my food and controlling my substance patterns and controlling. I'm interested to look at how you yoke from within, attachments literally just fall out of your life. I know, and that's so I talk about this in the book. It's the mind battle. There are for real big moments inside self where you're they do talk about it in the Bible, I think, where they're there's a line, and I'm not quoting from the actual Bible because I never really studied it since school, but Marianne Williamson, A Course in Weight Loss. And there's a bit in the quote where apparently Jesus says something along the lines of devil, get thee behind me. And I related that to myself when I was working through I'm never gonna, or blah 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 blah, I'm just not good enough and I'm never gonna be, and it was some love force from within saying to those shitty thoughts, devil, get thee behind me. You are not going to continue to make my life a living hell by telling me I'm shit or telling me I'm undeserving. So we have to, from within self, rise the love, rise that light warrior to shine light enough on the darkness to be I love you still. Like, even as small as you think you are, even as powerless as you think you are, even as disgusting and as you think you are, I'm still going to love you. And that we have these intense moments, and if you just love, it will kind of ride out, and you'll start to feel better, and you'll start to feel more in love. So really, comparison and judgment, it's pretty easy to notice because you start to feel contracted, you start to feel shit, you'll start to feel poopy about yourself, and if you pay attention, you'll notice the thoughts are not in alignment with your higher good. They're not in alignment with the expression of those of us who are working diligently to perceive the world through the eyes of love, to actually perceive a utopian, an amazing, enlightened civilization where people look after one another, where people don't divide us, you know, where it's not like the spiritual people are the good people and the people who go drinking and partying, those are the poopy people. We don't want to really pay attention to them, right? We unify the whole. It's not about like all of us singing Kumbaya together, but it is about understanding how to respect one another's boundaries as energetic beings and not just like take from one another and treat the majority of the population like slaves while the very few get to like have a little party while the slaves work really hard. So we're looking at a more holistic view using higher wisdom, i.e. advanced technology, to replace the workforce so that we don't have to be slaves on this planet anymore. Woohoo! That's really exciting. Okay, so no judgment, no compare. Judgment contracts. Judgment is negative. It feels like shit. And it doesn't really matter if you're judging yourself or you're judging another human being. As a mask, when you judge the other, it might feel like it's better to you, but it's only because that judgment is blocking where you need healing, where you need to look at, wait a minute, okay, if I'm talking like shit about that person, it's kind of making me feel better. What am I blocking? What am I not looking at? Why am I having mental space just to judge another person, right? Like we'd rather not. So look at that. And fuck, you know, I did it the other day, just looking at someone and then pass some slight judgment, but I caught it. I was like, see? I'm still carrying judgment around the body. And again, every time I see it, I can harmonize it, love the beauty, see the perfection of every single being, and then move on. Okay, so the final little note that I have here about how to truly let go. So we have stop comparing with others, stop judgment, self-judgment, and judgment against other. It's essentially the same thing. It's blocking your bliss either way. And then step 3 is... the reason we get into these kind of holding patterns is usually because we're ingesting far too much externally, i.e. we're listening to other people, we're watching too much TV, we're watching and ingesting and buying into too much of the news or other people's stories, whether you're watching this channel, YouTube, or whatever, you're ingesting way too much externally and not sitting in to just listen. So making that flip, and that's a simple one, sometimes a little bit more tricky to actually start practicing, but what this last step requires is to do things like meditate, sit in silence, go for quiet walks in nature, take relaxation, basically less chatter, certainly especially from other people. It might, obviously when you sit and meditate, you're acutely aware of how much inner chatter there is going on, but that's part of making that flip so that you can more easily practice and integrate the first 2 steps of compare less, judge as little as possible, and then flip it around, keep doing this, sit in silence, pay attention to yourself, and stop listening so much to other people. Stop buying into other people's stories. Other people includes really anything outside of you, any YouTube channel, anything on Netflix, any documentary, anything on TV at all, anything you read on the internet. Do not assume it's true. Just because it might feel kind of good to you doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Or recognize that it's true for you in that moment, and that you don't have to like buy into these things as like solidity, because that's part of this awakening, is realizing that consciousness is malleable. All of this perceives like this is the real world. That's part of the flip, is that we've given our own creation way too much power, and then that's the distortion. We've given our own creation more power than we give ourselves. So we have to integrate, we have to pull that power back in and start to be a lot more discerning with how we're directing thought, how we're directing consciousness into this reality, because it could be really effing beautiful. And it is. Like, those of us who have made that leap, it's like, I live in an effing paradise. I live in like this perfect, beautiful world, and my life is amazing. And then there's like little shadow aspects that you still have to swim around and tweak out and kind of uproot as and when. You guys, that's it for today. Rochelle, Always a pleasure to see you, my dear. Otherwise, all y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. I super duper appreciate when you guys subscribe and like and share this channel, because it really, really helps me out. Huggles, big huggles, Rochelle. Lots of love, you guys. Have an awesome Sunday, and I'll speak to you real soon. Peace out.